Hey folks, Jeff from Dead Drift Consulting here. I'm shooting a video here today with a specific subject in mind that was actually requested from me. So some of the videos that are already uploaded to my YouTube channel here have talked about different packs or load carriage systems. One of the things that has been specifically asked for was hey, what do you take for a Western hunt? Like, what do I need to pack? There are tons of videos out there, okay, and there's a lot of information out there, and then there's your own personal preference that is going to be its own component in this entire decision-making process about what to or not, or what to bring or what not to bring. However, the guy that requested this is actually a personal close friend of mine, a guy that I served on a SWAT team with for 11 years in the Midwest, and he is looking forward to planning or looking to plan his first Western elk hunt, is what I'm assuming. It could be mule deer, but his first foray out here into the Western United States in order to hunt for some real pretty iconic animals. So with that in mind, and with him specifically in mind, I wanted to kind of go over what my loadout here is. As a disclaimer, okay, I am not a lifelong, I've been hunting everywhere and taken 6 dozen animal, whatever. I'm not that guy, okay? I'm a regular dude that hunts when time and money and family allow, and that generally results in something significantly less than what my favorite hunting celebrities get to do, okay? So with the regular guy in mind, I wanted to kind of go over what I've learned in the last 10 years or so of being able to hunt on and off, both here and in Indiana or back in the Midwest. And what I've learned, okay? Every hunting experience, whether I kill something or not, is a learning experience. And that kind of guides and shapes everything as we go along. Remember, this is an evolutionary process, right? Like, there is no one single list that is a do-all for everything. It is entirely dependent upon not only what you're hunting, where you're hunting, and what time of year you're hunting, but what kind of person you are, what you need in terms of creature comforts or stuff that makes things more a better experience to begin with. All of those things are valid reasons. So do not feel restricted by my video or anybody else's recommendation for what you should or should not take. Okay, this is a highly subjective process. So with that in mind, everything that I plan, whether it's a backcountry fly fishing trip or a camping trip with the family, or a very serious hunt for something like elk or whatever, any of those things, every single one of those processes begins with this right here. A steno pad that I make notes on and physically write out a detailed list of everything I need in order to accomplish that endeavor. Regardless of whether or not it's obvious stuff. I don't take anything for granted. I go through the process of doing this every single time because it is proven to be invaluable, in that I have yet to forget something truly critical. So, as an example, this is a list that I made for a backcountry fly fishing trip several years ago. It includes everything that I can think of. A pack, a day pack, trekking poles, stove, fuel, sleeping bag, sleeping mat, my tent vestibule and ground cloth, a lantern, headlamp, food, a folding chair, jackets, down sweater, cold fishing gloves, hats, beanies, sunglasses ×3, reading glasses because I'm getting old, my GPS watch, drink mix. The list goes on and on and on, and it doesn't leave anything out regardless of how obvious that may be. So I've also listed here 2 different fly rods that I want to take. A third one that is ultra lightweight and can fit in a backpack super well. How many reels I want to take. My waist pack, waders, boots, net, fly boxes, hats, a journal, first aid kit. All these things are things that may be completely obvious, like if I'm going fishing, I'm going to take a freaking fishing rod, right? All of these, I list those things out regardless because I like the ability, the organizational process of reading it and checking it off, and then physically seeing it stacked into a staging area, which is how I do every one of these trips. I move all of this gear into a central location where I can physically observe it with my own eyes and check it off the list. When it comes to things like bow hunting, I will list actually my bow, the bow sight, the arrows I want to take and how many, which broadheads and how many. All of those little things to me, sure, they're obvious and they're no-brainers, but once you start treating something like a no-brainer, it becomes something that you completely forget. So thank God at this point I haven't forgotten a fly rod or a bow when I've gone on these trips. So before I mean, we're going to get into a few things. There's a few things that are stacked down here on the floor in front of me that I'll get into at the end of this. But let's start with some stoves and meal preparation. So this is the MSR wind burner. It is like the baby brother to the MSR reactor, which I would highly suggest if you have the need for something that big and rugged and you have the money to do it, because that one ain't cheap. This is the wind burner. I think it has a 1 liter pot. Comes with a lid, a little foot base that holds the entire stove upright. The small style isobutane fuel canisters fit down inside the pot, and then this is the actual stove burner itself. So the stove screws directly to the fuel canister, and then on top of that, the pot itself kind of key locks in there, so you can pick up the entire stove and move it. Or after you're done heating that water, shut the stove off, twist it like this, the little cup and pot comes right off by itself. This particular thing has been surprising. It's been very reliable and rugged, and it hasn't let me down yet. I'm sure there are reviews out there that say don't buy it, but in my experience, that thing has been pretty good. Another stove that I've got right here is the MSR Whisperlite International. Now this is a multi-fuel stove, and so in other words, I can use isobutane like this, but I can also use gasoline, kerosene, diesel fuel, propane. It'll run off of any of those things. So this stove here has feet that kind of deploy and fold out into a triangle. This is the fuel line, and then this attaches directly to my fuel source. This stove, like the reactor and like one other that I'll go over here in a moment, have a very good regulator to it. So you can, it's not just an on-off sort of a relationship. You can adjust the intensity of the flame, so you can get a full-on boil, or you can get just a low simmer. This stove, don't discount stoves like this, because this is super sexy. It's all in one, and yes, it's very efficient because of the way that the windscreen and the burner technology is arranged in here. But these things have been, if I had to choose just one stove, it would probably be something like this, just because of the fact that it's been so bomber over the years. I've used these both domestically and overseas, and never had a single issue with getting these to work. So super reliable. It comes with a windscreen that is just an aluminum strip that's about 6 inches tall, that fits around the entire burner area and just increases the efficiency and the heat retention of the burner itself. Lastly, another MSR. This is called the Pocket Rocket, and as you can see, I'm going to move up here. As you can see, the Pocket Rocket is super small, and it's aptly named. So this whole thing unfolds, or the little pot supports unfold here. So the pot fits on top of here, just like it does with the Whisperlite, and then the bottom here is where the valve is, and that screws directly into your fuel canister. Again, you have this simmer control or heat or flame intensity control, and then when you're done with the dang thing, this thing folds up into almost nothing. That literally, what the hell is going on here? That literally fits in your hand. Okay, so there it is in the palm of my hand, and then that thing fits into this small little plastic container, just like that, and that little container fits inside one of these pots over here. Okay, so the MSR Pocket Rocket is a real good item if you are going for ultra lightweight. That's probably going to fit the bill. different style pots. This is GSI Outdoors. This is called the Soloist, and this is called the Duelist. So obviously this is meant for like a one-person trip, and this is for two. And I believe this is about 1 liter versus 2 liters. So choose the size of your pot accordingly. These are aluminum. They're super lightweight, and they're very rugged. So that's for either boiling water to add to a meal or cooking your entire meal inside it. Moving to meals. So these are meals from Outdoor Pantry. Outdoor Pantry is a company that is local to me. They're in Tucson, which is about 2 hours north of where I live. Or sorry, 2 hours south of where I live. I tried these guys. I tried this company last year and was impressed from the very first bite. Not only because their food is very delicious and tasty, but also because the nutritional profile is pretty good. It's better than like Mountain House, but it's not like just I don't want a full-on paleo obsessive friggin' meal, because I want it to taste good. I mean, it's one thing for it to have the nutrition that I need, the protein, the carbohydrates, and the electrolytes and whatever else. That's important, absolutely, 100% for performance. But when I'm out there by myself, trying to break myself in order to do what I'm doing, this is the meal at the end of the day in the evening is kind of a reward for all the effort you put out for the rest of the day. So flavor and satisfaction count, absolutely. So I don't mind having a little bit of sugar or a little bit more fat in my meals. Well, all that is not to say that these are overloaded and that these are crazy. But I do think, on the other hand, that some of the Mountain House stuff is a little overboard. Specifically because of, solely addressing taste above everything else. So whatever, form your own opinion. Outdoor Pantry, Tucson, Arizona. This is Thai-style chicken soup. This one is shrimp and bacon corn chowder, which is delicious. I've eaten that several times. Home-style turkey dinner. Smoked pulled pork with salsa and black beans. All of their meals are freeze-dried. They're economically priced. They're not cheap, but they're not $15 a piece either. And at least for me, locally, being in Tucson means that if I order it today, I'm getting it. It's possible I can get it tomorrow, and if not tomorrow, definitely by the next day. And that makes a huge difference, because sometimes I can run down to REI or Cabela's or Bass Pro, and they just don't have either anything in stock, or it's not something that looks particularly appealing to me. So I really like their menu. Their biscuits and gravy will change your mind forever about biscuits and gravy if that's not your thing, like it was for me. That's going to be a staple in my pack every time. So, outdoorpantry.com. This is like a little accessory bag that I usually carry, and generally there's a little bit more in here, like instant coffee and honey and whatever else. But inside this little bag, I have like loose leaf tea and a little tea ball thing to steep it in. Okay, I will usually keep some kind of eating utensils in there. So the Sea to Summit extra long titanium spoon that I've been using for about the last 8 years, as well as some Snow Peak takedown titanium chopsticks, because whatever, I'm Japanese and that's pretty badass. And then a small little container of like meat seasoning, because if I kill something out there, I'm eating a piece of it that night over the campfire. So there's some seasoning as well. Obviously that varies with whatever it is that you have or want to bring. And then lastly, Wilderness Athlete. They're not a sponsor, but they have been an enthusiastic supporter of mine, Dead Drift Consulting and prior. So in other endeavors that have involved athletic type events or drawing upon the profession that I've made my career over the last 30 years, Wilderness Athlete has been there for about the last 6 or 7 years as a strong supporter of what I'm trying to accomplish. And I cannot stress enough how valuable both the Hydrate and Recover drink mix and the Energy and Focus drink mix have been in everything that I have done. This stuff is phenomenal, and if there's one thing that I won't compromise on, this is it. I can find food that tastes good. I can find some different tea or coffee or whatever else, but this stuff right here is something that I won't compromise on. So now that we've got past the actual edible parts of it, let's talk a little bit about water collection and treatment. I will generally carry absolutely at least one Nalgene bottle all the time, and sometimes two, depending upon what my needs are. But a Nalgene bottle, and that is my primary source of water collection throughout the day. So while I'm hiking in or during a day hunt away from camp, whatever else, I will find a water source and fill that up in order to carry water. I also utilize the MSR Drumlight series of bags because they're super durable, and they weigh a couple ounces more than like your typical thing, but they're super durable and they're very handy and they hold a lot of water. So that's a 6 liter pouch, which is not something that I'm going to carry for a day of hiking around, but you know, for camp water or whatever else, that works really well. And they're relatively lightweight and whatever else, so not too much of a big deal. Now I will say that here in Arizona, when I go up into the mountains in order to hunt, it is entirely different than Colorado with regard to water sources. We don't have running water here like they do up there. So there's a lot of planning that goes into what do we do for water and what style are we going to do this hunt in. In other words, it's not so much a backpack hunt where I leave the car and I don't return for the next 5 days, but it is a backpack day hunt out of a centralized, like a base camp, where my vehicle will be. And that makes the water situation a little bit less tenuous because at least I know I have fresh water at a specific location. So these kinds of things make a big difference for that. Well, maybe not so much for that because I can carry water in the car, but if I establish my camp away from the car by say a mile, I can fill bladders like this and make a trip or two back and forth from the car to stage water for the end of the day. So those are storage containers for me. In terms of sterilization or filtration, my very first choice is generally, when I'm backpacking, is the Sterapen. This is a Sterapen Classic. There are several others out there. There's like an Ultra and an Adventurer and something else, whatever the heck it is. But the Classic comes highly recommended by a very trusted resource and a friend. So this is the one I bought. It actually winds up being the least expensive, I think, of the bunch. And this is super reliable. All you're doing is filling your container, for instance a Nalgene bottle, take the cap off because this is glass, and you press the button for either a half liter or a full liter, and then you submerge the glass part with the sensors into the bottle and stir it around until the little light blinks, which is about 60 seconds for a liter. You do that, it kills everything that's in that water, and then it makes it potable. Now you can drink it. So don't forget this little protective cap thing, because that UV light emitter thing is glass and you don't want to break that. If I need actual no shit filtration, then I will usually pack the Katadyn Vario. There are smaller units out there. I think there's a hiker model or something like that, but I really like this giant handle here that allows you to pump a volume of water a little bit more efficiently than say maybe a plunger or something like that. This hose goes into your water source. That's what sucks the water out. And then one of the great things about the Vario is the base of it is sized and designed to screw onto the mouth of a Nalgene bottle. It will also screw on to the opening on the drum light. So that simplifies gathering the water as I can run it through the hose, through the filtration device, and right into the container that I want to store it in, and that's super handy. the Katadyn Vario there are two different filters in here that water goes through. One is a ceramic filter, which takes all the nasty stuff out of there. And then there's a charcoal filter that actually it improves the taste of water. So those things are worth considering. Not all the time will I use this because it is bulky and it does weigh a little bit more. And sometimes it's not really even necessary. If I'm in the high country in Colorado and I'm up at 12,000 feet or 11.5 or whatever it is, and I'm pulling water out of a creek that's flowing off the summit snowpack, like, I'm really not concerned about what the hell's in that water. I'm just going to fill that thing up and drink it. But if there's any question, then it takes 60 seconds to sterilize it with the SteriPen, and I'm really not losing anything. You get into lower elevations or down around livestock or into an area that maybe is a drainage for multiple tributaries and multiple creeks that are coming from questionable areas, then you may want to use something like the Vario that is an actual filtration. And then finally, as a total backup, or to treat very large collections of large amounts of water, I will use the Aquamira water treatment system. Now, this is a two-part system, and for every liter of water, it takes 7 drops of part A and 7 drops of part B. Which, if you're treating a 6-liter bladder, like I did last September, that's 42 drops out of each one. Which, yeah, there's a lot of counting involved. There's some math, backcountry math. So keep that in mind. But this stuff is super effective. It does change the taste of the water. It gives it a slight chlorine taste, like you get out of tap water, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it does work. I treated some water with that out of a questionable source in September, and I didn't get sick. I didn't get the shits. It was fine. I cooked with it, whatever. Good stuff. So, Aquamira, SteriPen, Katadyn actual filter. A first aid kit, IFAK. This is something that it appears that I take this a little bit more seriously than some of my friends or counterparts, or even what I see sort of celebrities out there talking about. But the majority of the hunting that I do, or fly fishing that I do, winds up being solo. So that puts the impetus on me to be prepared for whatever it is that I may encounter, because I don't have somebody else to help me out. So I take the whole IFAK idea a little bit more seriously than your average bear, I guess. So what do I have in here? Well, I've got Band-Aids and Neosporin for basic stuff. I have a number of different gauze pads, because quite honestly, I don't think you can have too many of them, and if you're bleeding profusely, you need something like this. Hemostatic gauze pads. So this is that quick clot stuff that's infused with that clotting agent. If you're talking about an artery hit or a large laceration or something that is bleeding profusely, yes, you need gauze, but this will maximize the efficiency of whatever dressing you're putting on there, because it is an actual clotting agent. Stuff is expensive, so shop around or talk to people. Okay, moleskin, good for blisters and whatever else. It's even good on the shelf of a bow. Alcohol swabs to clean stuff up. I carry 2 different kinds of tape. Leuco tape that's like waterproof and really sticks really well, and then this Coban stuff that's more general outer dressing kind of a thing. This is surgical glue. It is the sterilized medical industry version of super glue. Super glue works. I've used it to repair my fingers on countless incidents while rock climbing and bouldering and whatever else. But this is the surgical stuff. I carry a tourniquet in my IFAK, in addition to the tourniquet that's always on the waist belt of my pack, just because I don't think you can have too many of those. And then I have 600 milligram ibuprofen and 7.5 milligram OxyContin. Both of those, as a tablet form like that, are prescription. So if you have an injury or a medical procedure or surgery of some kind that prescribes that, and you wind up with extra, like most people do, hang on to them, because they can come in handy when we are treating pain alone in the background. All right. So that there is the first aid kit. That thing goes with me everywhere, by the way. It's not only in the pack as I walk in and whatever else, but anytime I leave camp as on a day hunt or whatever else, that goes in the pack with me. This is my shit kit, is what I call it. There are baby wipes in there, a package of baby wipes, some real toilet paper, and a trowel to dig a hole with. I'm just going to leave that just like that because that's all we need to talk about. This is a bunch of 550 cord, or no, this is actually like 3 or 4 millimeter climbing rope and a carabiner. And I think this is about 50 feet, which is probably a little bit redundant. But regardless, this is something I use in case of like to hang food from a tree, or maybe I need to lasso the hoof of one of my animals and tie it to a tree so that I can help support weight and field dress it. Comes in handy a lot, and there's like a million uses for this kind of stuff. 550 cord works, even guy line works, like tent guy line, which is lighter weight and smaller than that. This is a Primus lantern. I think it's called the mini lantern. And the mini lantern is valuable to me because it produces heat as opposed to, and in addition to light. So this thing screws onto the base of, or onto a fuel source, okay? I will run this thing inside my tent in order to provide heat and ability to dry things and for light. And we can go into the merits of whether or not you should run a fire burning frickin' mechanism, be it a stove or a lantern or something, inside of a tent. I run a floorless shelter. It's really not an issue as long as I'm careful, which you got to be careful with all this stuff anyways. Really not an issue, but it expedites the drying process, and it gives you the warmth inside the tent for yourself as well. Just an all-around good thing. Bear spray, highly recommended if you're in bear country. Whether or not you carry a firearm like I do in addition to that is completely up to you, but I don't think it's wrong or ridiculous or I don't think you're fooling yourself by carrying this, because I think this could actually work. A good headlamp. So this is the Petzl Now, N-A-O, Now headlamp. It's expensive, it's very powerful, and it is somewhat bulky and heavy. I'm going to replace this, I think, this year, because I don't need something this bulky and heavy. I do, however, like the fact that I think it's like 750 lumens out of this lamp. Having a good lamp is a big deal. I mean, it's a safety concern. So spend a little extra money and maybe buy the $60 lamp as opposed to going to Walmart or whatever and buying the one labeled Energizer. Like, yeah, that's going to work when you're this far from what you're doing, but when you're trying to get out of a place at night and that you're not familiar with, and there's no terrain familiarization or whatever else, you're going to appreciate a brighter headlamp when it keeps you from getting cliffed out, or takes you in the wrong direction, or identifies a hazard that's up ahead there that you didn't see initially. So I would look at the Petzl line. Black Diamond makes some good ones as well. Princeton Tech. Personally, I prefer the Petzl ones or the Black Diamond ones, although I still lean towards the Petzl. So take a look at that stuff when you get a chance to. I'm going to end this right now and start part 2, because I don't want to rush through this too much, but I also don't want to wind up with this being an hour. So stay tuned for part 2. That's coming up. We're going to cover a sleep system and a couple other things, and then we'll be done. All right. Thanks. Bye.